this is Kristen from Mind Your Bees and Trees, and today I'm going to show you how to make Kaiserschmaarn. If you've never heard of Kaiserschmaarn, it's like a big giant pancake. I have the batter here. It just looks like regular pancake batter. I don't want to spill it out of my bowl. I don't know how well you can see it, but I don't want to spill it, so you can just trust me when I say it looks like regular pancake batter. The recipe for Kaiserschmaarn is on my blog, mindyourbeesandtrees.com, and I'll post a link below this video in case you're watching it in YouTube. But it's really, really simple. It's a breakfast that my mom has been making as long as I can remember. It was always a really special treat when my mom would make Kaiserschmaarn for us. Just like a lot of families make pancakes on the weekend, my mom made Kaiserschmaarn. So it's like a big giant pancake, and you pour it into the pan here, and then you cook it as one giant thing, all the batter at once. The tricky part is then we have to flip it over, and after that we tear it apart with some forks, and then we eat it. So I wanted to show you because a lot of people are intimidated making it because it seems tricky, but it's really not that difficult. So right now I have about a tablespoon of butter melting in my pan, and you just want to make sure that it coats the entire pan because you do not want any of your batter to stick to any part of the pan. That will make flipping it a disaster. So I'm just trying to turn the pan so the butter goes all over the pan. And you want your burner set really low. I have my burner on about level 3, so my mom used to cook it lower than that, but I get really impatient waiting for it, so I cook it at 3. But if you cook it any higher than that, then the bottom will burn and the top part will still be runny, and then when you flip it, it'll also be a disaster. So now that I have my butter all around the pan, I'm just going to take my batter that I have prepared here. It's just flour, sugar, eggs, and milk. Give it one last whisk. And now you just pour it into your pan. Okay, so once you pour the batter in, you're going to cover it, and then you're going to leave it for about 10 minutes until a little bit of a crust forms on the bottom, but it's definitely still runny on the top because we want to put some raisins on there inside the pancake. That's the traditional way that we always eat it in my family, but sometimes my mom also puts walnuts. So today I'm going to put walnuts and raisins, but you want to make sure that a crust forms on the bottom, otherwise they're going to go straight to the bottom of the pan and burn. So I'll check it in about 10 minutes. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes, so I'm going to take off the lid and check it. The way I check it is I just put my finger in the pan and touch down. If you can feel the bottom of the pan, then you need to wait a little bit longer. But if you can feel a little bit of a crust, like I can feel a little bit of a crust, I'm also going to eat the batter. If you can feel a little bit of a crust, then you're ready. So first I take my raisins. I take like a handful of raisins and just sprinkle them over the top. It's not critical how you do this, and if you don't like raisins, you could use craisins or dried cherries, or you could just leave them out altogether. This recipe is very versatile, so you can do whatever you want. Don't worry, you're not going to mess it up. Okay, and now I'm going to take some chopped walnuts. To chop my nuts, I always put them in a Ziploc baggie and then beat them with the meat tenderizer. It works pretty well. So now I'm sprinkling these on top of my batter also. I don't know if you can see it, so I'll try to show you in a second. So I did about a handful of each, although I'm only doing half a recipe. So if you're doing a whole recipe, you might want to do a little bit more, but just eyeball it. If you want to have a lot of raisins, use a lot of raisins and walnuts, and if you don't, don't. Okay. Couple more raisins for good measure. There you can see how all my raisins and walnuts. Okay, now I'm going to try to balance the computer and show you. Next, I just take my finger and kind of smush them down so the batter covers all of them. So I'm going to do that before I put the lid back on. See how they're starting to go underneath the batter? So I'm going to do that and then put the lid back on. I'm going to keep doing this and then I'll put the lid back on until it's cooked almost all the way through. The way you know how to turn it is that little bubbles have formed all on the top of the pan, just like if you were making pancakes. I mean, little bubbles formed all the way on the top of the batter. Just like if you're making pancakes, when the bubbles form, you know it's time to flip it over. So the same thing goes for Kaiserschmaarn. I turned it up to about 3.5 while I was waiting. Like I said, I get impatient. But I would not turn it past 4 if you're impatient like me. Just so you know, don't turn it past 4. They're all covered, so I'm going to cover it back again, and then in a couple of minutes I'll come back and check on it. I would say maybe it needs 5 more minutes. Okay, it's been about 5 more minutes, so I'm back. I'm going to take the lid off of my Kaiserschmaarn here and show you. Let me grab the computer. Someday I'll have a tripod so I don't have to do this. You can tell that it's pretty much cooked almost all the way through, and there are tiny little bubbles all over the top. Okay, so now comes the fun part when we get to flip it. So I actually have 2 different spatulas here. This one's pretty fancy. And I kind of get my way underneath one. It helps that I have a nonstick pan, but if you grease your pan really well, then you should be okay. And then I try to get the other one underneath it, and then all at once. 1, 2, 3. Whoops. Flip. Alright. After you flip it, you don't need to cover it again. You just need to let it cook for maybe 3 more minutes. You just want to make sure that now the bottom side cooks. It's pretty much cooked all the way through now, but you just want to make sure that the bottom side cooks, and then it will be time to tear it apart. It's been about 3 more minutes, so I'm just going to go ahead and guess that this is done. The next thing you need to do is take 2 forks, because we're going to shred it apart. Now, honestly, I normally do this in my really nice Calphalon pan, but I'm very, very careful not to scrape the bottom with my forks. But I know that my mom will probably be watching this video, and she would die if she saw me doing that. So for her benefit, I'm going to put the Kaiserschmaarn on something else and do it on something else that I can't ruin, because I don't want her to be upset. You won't be able to see my face, but I want you to be able to see how I do this. So I just start from one end and then just pull it apart with the fork like this. Oops. See how it's making little pieces, and it's really like dense and moist in there. It's delicious. They're not super, super fluffy like a regular pancake. It doesn't matter what size pieces you get. I just try to get like little bite-sized pieces, but just however you think is fine. Okay, now I finished shredding it all up, so here it is. That's just half of a recipe, but honestly, my husband and I, we can eat a whole recipe ourselves. Like I said, it's just a special weekend treat. So now you're going to dish it up. In my family, we always had special Kaiserschmaarn bowls. These are not my family's Kaiserschmaarn bowls. Ours were orange, but I decided that these will now be our Kaiserschmaarn bowls, so you have to eat it in the proper bowl. Okay, and you can see all the pieces of walnuts and raisins in there. Yummy. And then the way that my mom always serves it, and one of the traditional ways of eating it, is with applesauce and cinnamon sprinkled on top. You can also sprinkle powdered sugar on top, or my husband just likes to eat it with maple syrup. So it's a lot better with homemade applesauce, but I don't have any homemade right now. So I have the Mott's all natural, no sugar added, of course, applesauce. So I put like 2 or 3 heaping spoonfuls of that on there. And then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on top. And there it is. Yummy! It's really, really delicious, so you should definitely make it for your next weekend treat. And it's not overly sweet because the whole recipe only has a half a cup of sugar in it. So it's a perfect little treat, and you don't have to feel too guilty about it. I hope you enjoy it. I just wanted to show you how I like to eat mine all. I mix everything all up together. Oh, it's so yummy. If you enjoyed this recipe, please go check out mindyourbeesandtrees.com. I also made 2 other videos. One is how to make a pumpkin roll, and the other is how to make yummy bars. They're both really easy, something that you can do at home, and so delicious and sure to be a huge hit with all of your friends. If you're also interested in learning a little bit more about the history of Kaiserschmaarn and where it comes from, then check out my blog. Thanks. Bye.